Likkutei Torah, Shelach, Mem Zayin, top of the second column. Okay, the Alter Rebbe was explaining the way all the pleasures of this world comes from the Malachim, and therefore that came down into, from enjoyment of Kedusha comes enjoyment of evil. And then you have the Malachim, that whole story. And therefore, because they're far, they're not at such a high level, they're making a rash, a big tumult, rash gadol. But he says rash is a level of shad. But shad, you have shad and sad. Okay, so he explains what's the level of sad. Torah is the level of sad, the way Torah, because what is hair? Hair grows from the head, but it's a very limited chayis from the head, and therefore when you cut your hair, it doesn't hurt, because it's very limited. That's the way Torah comes down, and he says, okay, now he says like this, Misham, this level of tainik, that comes even into Gan Eden for that matter, or even down here, is Aydei Tzimtzum, through the level of concealment. That this level of Torah, remember we learned yesterday, you have the level of Torah as Chochmah, then you have the level of Torah as enjoyment. That level of Tainug comes into the Chochmah of Torah, and then Torah is called Saris. Al derech Moshe b'chinas Simtzum Chayis HaMeichen B'Saira, like the level of the Chayis that comes from the brain into the hair. V'zehu gam kein inyan Tainug and Neshamas B'Gan Eden, this limited level of enjoyment of Elokus that comes into the Neshamas of Gan Eden, which is Gamki Masagas HaTorah, also from the understanding of Torah Kaneda. Shebegan Eden Atachnun Ulimit Pnimis Shel HaTorah Nigus Lonu. The lower level of Gan Eden is where they learn the secrets of Torah. But Gan Eden Elyon is Razeh Di Razin, the secrets of the secrets. In other words, higher than that. Because of Bechinas Sar Reisha. Okay, that's all the level of Sar. So what's the level of Sar? Torah is by Hashem Tainug. From that level of Tainug, enjoyment of Hashem, it comes into Gan Eden, which is also extremely limited. And then when it keeps coming down, it becomes the enjoyment of this world. From the sediment, the junk of the Malach. But mitzvahs which are on a higher level, mitzvahs are not the wisdom of Hashem. It's the will of Hashem. Comes in the essence of Tainug Shalamayla Miyagilui. Of Tainug Amitzamtzim Aydei Saitis. V'nimshel v'chochma. He says, mitzvahs, because it's not limited into Chochma, Chochma is automatically limited. Because as brilliant as you are, it's still limited. Willpower, though, is a much stronger level of Tainug. That level of Tainug, like it says, Meroiv Koil, if the Tachas Shalabadita says, Shem Lakechu, Mitzimchu, Meroiv Koil, Pirush Shalamai, Lemi Tainug Eliki, Shugan Eden Elyon, which is the level of Tzimtzum, because it says, Yud Nivra Elam Abba. We know, it says like this. We say in the Volitzian, it's a pasuk. Ki bi Yudke Hashem, Sur Elamin. With the level of Yudke, he formed the worlds. So the Medrash says, with Yud, Hashem created Olam Haba, and Hey, he created Olam Hazeh. Even Yud is a Tzimtzum. What is Yud? It's a dot. It's the very limited level. That means, even Gan Eden or Elyon is still the level of Sar. Sar, which means limitation. V'alem u'shenemar, levush that the garments can tell like chiyur, like white snow. Shamitzvos nikram levushim. Mitzvahs are also called garments. Shaderech marshal levush. Shamaylam u'masker sa'adam amelubish. By why are mitzvahs called garments? He says, what does a garment do? It covers the person's body. It conceals it. Kach sheirish hamitzvahs imebchinas makar ha'teinugim, which is the level of Helem, Veinim is Gal, B'chinas Chochma V'Asoga. In other words, like this. We learned already many times. As great as Torah is, it's only Chochma. It's the wisdom of Hashem. Mitzvahs are the will of Hashem. Therefore, mitzvahs, in a certain respect, are counted as garments, because it surrounds us, it's makif. On the other hand, chokhmah is likened to food, because you internalize it. You digest the food, you learn it, you digest it. So therefore, he says, the limitation of garments is much less of a limitation than it is when it comes into chokhmah. Therefore, garments are less limited. It's a greater revelation. But what's unique though, how does that will of mitzvahs reveal? Only through action mitzvahs, in Gashmias. In Gan Eden they also learn Torah. They're only Gashmias bodies to learn Torah in Gan Eden. But it comes through action, physical action. Techiyat mitzvahs deraisa, because the 613 biblical. In Sheva mitzvahs rabbanon, together with the 7 rabbinic mitzvahs, is Taf Reish Chaf, right? 620, which is Keser Chaf Taf Reish, but it's also Terach Amud Ord, 613 pillars. Amudim is a pillar, meaning, what does it mean? Why are they called Amudei Ord? Or what does an amud do? What does a pillar do? It connects the floor and the ceiling. When you say mitzvah 620, right, 613 and 7, is amudei ord, what does it mean? It's an amud. It connects heaven and earth by bringing down ord, the level of light. So it's a much greater level of revelation of godliness than chokhmah is.
So the mitzvot that we do down here are the symptom of the Ratzon of Hashem.
Correct. But that can only come into Gashmiistic levels. That's why, as he quoted at the beginning of the Maimer, you know, Hayom La say some, today you do the mitzvah and tomorrow you get the reward. You can't do the mitzvahs in Gan Eden.
But that is the reward, you said.
Right.
The mitzvah is the reward.
Yes.
So that means that his Ratzon was much greater than the mitzvot that we do.
Yeah, it comes down into Gashmiistic mitzvah. But this Gashmiistic mitzvah is the only way that reveals the essence of the will.
This 606.
20.
620. Plus 7.
In other words, when a Jew does a mitzvah, they connect heaven and earth, and they reveal godliness that normally cannot come down, because there's a disconnect from heaven to earth, so to speak, in Revelations. Therefore, when a person does a mitzvah, they actually created a pillar of light that connects heaven and earth and brings down that light, that order.
When a Jew puts the finger down here,
That's what happens up there.
it's a symptom of the much greater thing that is in Ratzon.
Correct. That's where Hashem puts on tefillin too. Because Baruch maniach tefillin. Why? Because any mitzvah, the Medrash says, kids say in the Bar Mitzvah Maimer, Magid Varav Liyaakov Chukav Mishpat, he tells his words, his mitzvahs. So it says, Mashu Mitzava Lachedim Lases Hu Eiseh. Any mitzvah Hashem does, He commands us to do, He does Himself. So the Gemara says, Hakadosh Baruch Hu maniach tefillin. Now, He doesn't stand there with a box and go like this. Obviously, I mean it's a little ridiculous. So the Gemara Takem Brachas asks, Tefillin the Mari Alma Maksabu. What does it say in Hashem's tefillin? In our tefillin it says Shema Yisrael, the 4 portions. So it says, what does it say in Hashem's tefillin? Umi ka'amcha Yisrael goy echad ba'aretz. So we say in our tefillin, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. We say Hashem is Echad. We praise Hashem. And what does it say in Hashem's tefillin? That the praise of the Jew, who is like you, Joy. Huh? the Sofrim.
Stop.
When he said by Moshe Rabbeinu, it says that Hashem showed Moshe Rabbeinu
The Kesher of Tefillah. Again, what do you mean? He saw a head
No,
with the...
but what does
okay.
it mean, Rabbi, by that Kesher? What does he say?
There's a level of the external levels of Elokus, which is bound, tied to Hashem, and that's what he saw, external levels of Elokus.
And Aaron Cohen brings
Upon Elo Yero, you can't see the premise of Hashem. It's too great for a human being to see. Not only, Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu, Ki lo yerani ha'adam v'chai. No person can see me and live. But the Medrash in Kabbalah says, Ki lo yerani ha'adam v'chai. It means a person can't see me, v'chai, the Chayis HaKodesh can't see me. Simply means a person can't see me and live. It means not only that a person who's in the body not see, even that the Chayis HaKodesh can't see Elokus.
Is this level Aaron Cohen brought down when he moved the menorah?
What? Yes. All these levels of mitzvahs were brought down.
I'm saying when Aaron moved
By day, through doing the action, this is even a deeper level than what's revealed through Chachma. This is what the physical aspect of Kabbanis are. Shakrav is behemoth gashmis, bringing a physical animal on the mizbeach. Mechaper l'chet adam, forgives the sin of a person. Now l'chayra, the obvious question is, a guy sins, a guy rebels against Hashem. Okay, in the physical world, when there used to be kings, if a guy rebels against the king, he's instantaneously put to death. There's not even a court case. The king kills him on the spot, right? Yet a Jew sins against the king of all kings, and what does Hashem say to do? Bring a carbon, and you'll be okay. You kill the animals like you killed yourself. I mean, how does that work? How does it work that, No, but he says, it says, so he says, how does Korbanos work? So he says, a person, the nation is a part of Hashem, therefore, when a person blemishes and sins, he blemishes, like the Alter Rebbe says in the Gersa Tshuva. When a person does an Avera, they blemish the name of Hashem. What does a person do? Like this, a person is connected to Hashem. Yeah? Like the Yaakov Chevel Nachlosi, it's the rope. Yeah? A Jew goes down sinning, he Kaviyachol drags Hashem with him. He drags Yud Kevavke down. So therefore, what happens when you sin? You put the Shechina in Golus. What's the whole concept? You say, when Jews are in Golus, Hashem is in Golus. What does that mean? It means that a Jew doesn't have Aveda, they drag Hashem into Golus. That's it. So what's the kapara? How do you get undo? How do you rectify that level? You can't rectify it with Yud Kevavke, because you blemish that level. A prisoner cannot free himself. You blemish that level of Yud Kevavke. How in the world can you elevate that? He said that's only through Lifnei Havaya, reaching a level of higher than Yud Kevavke, which are Yud Gimel Midas Serachmi. They say often that carries sin. And how do you reveal? So now what do you have to do? To do tshuva, you have to have the Yud Gimel Midas Serachmi, right? High Lifnei Havaya. He said that can only be through Behemoth Gashmi Dafka. So in order to bring down that level of Yud Gimel Midas Rachmim, you need to have a physical low Behemoth to bring down that level of Elokut. Why? Because the end is wedged in the beginning is edged in the end. Everything higher when it comes down, okay? It comes the higher the thing, the lower it falls. So a behemoth down here is lower than people, at least in most places. Keina behem al matin nemuch madreg min adam, which is the level of medaber. So this, the fact that the behemoth is lower than the person who hayra, that itself shows that in the source a behemoth is even higher up there. Okay, because behemoth down here, the Gemara says behemoth ein lo das. Behemoth has no das. Yeah. So down here it has no das. But the source of an animal is higher than das. Therefore, it's like shtus of kedusha comes into shtus of evil. Shtus of evil has to be transformed to shtus of kedusha. He says, behemoth down here, the Gemara says, ein lo das. Therefore, with the first brach of Shmoneh, atachen lo adam das. Because that's the uniqueness of a person over an animal, that we have das. Maturity, understanding, binding, connection. So a behemoth down here is a level lower than das. But in the source, it also ain't no das. The Gemara says behemoth has no das. Now it could be lower than das, it could be higher than das. So down here, the behemoth has no das, lower than das. The down up there, ain't no das means it's higher than das.
From the Merkava, Rabbi.
That's the Merkava. Correct. Okay, so therefore like this, down here behemoth is lower, but when you bring the behemoth to mizbeach and it becomes consumed in the godly fire, the eish shalamayla, me'erdo mamsheh b'bchinat lifnei havaya. That's what's so unique about karbonis. Contrary to the animal rights, that whatever, we'll leave them out. But the bottom line is, Davka behemoth, which is lower than a person, can reveal a higher level than a person does. If the behemoth is brought on the mizbeach, and then you elevate it, it becomes consumed in the fire of the mizbeach. Now, like it says in Tanya, we don't have korbanos, so it's the mitzvah of tzedakah, but Shamarti v'nasir etzayni. That level of ratzing. And that's why it's more unique than mitzvahs. Every mitzvah is nasir etzayni. Right. But that means the kavanah of Hashem, because the beginning is edged in the end, and the end is wedged in the beginning. Seif ma'asim machshava tchila norz chilasim b'seifon. So because of that, the ultimate level of Elokus is dafka low. That's why Kabbalah and Chassidus learn, and the Ramban learns, that the ultimate schar and gilui Elokus is dafka tchis amesim in Gashmis, not like the Rambam that's in Gan Eden. The Rambam holds you can't have ultimate schar in Gashmis. But according to Ramban, Chassidus, Kabbalah, Dafka Gashmi is because it's low. Dafka because it's low. That's why it's all the way up there. It could reveal the essence of Hashem. That's what, like we learned a million times, that only Gashmis reveals the Metzius and Yatzmusa aspect of Elokus. That's only Dafka because it's lower. Dafka because it doesn't think it has a source. Dafka because it thinks it's a self-existent entity. That's why it could reveal that real level of Elokus, which is that Hashem is a self-existent entity.
It's not too bad to be too far, because when you do Shuvah, you're connected to the right self.
Yeah, I know. But the problem is, sometimes you decide not to do Shuvah.
It's risky.
That's why Echtav Oshering must be Kamiyah Lasis Tshuva. Because you don't know what's going to be. Okay, so he says, it's early. Okay, okay. What is, now it says, Kamei Kim B'mitzvah Tzedakah Ksiv, Ma'isa Tzedakah Shalom. The act of Tzedakah is Shalom. What does that mean? The act of Tzedakah is Shalom. What's the inyan of Shalom? We'll understand it from the nether pasuk, Eisa Shalom b'mreimov, That God who makes peace on high, that's what it means, right? The God that makes peace on high, Yaseh Shalom Aleinu, makes peace on us. What does that mean? What peace does Hashem, what peacemaker is Hashem up there? He says he makes peace, Bein Sar Shamayim and Bein Sar Shel Esh. There's a guy up there called Michal. He's the Malach of water. There's a guy up there called Gavriel. He's the Malach of fire. Yeah? And yeah, anybody has two kids, Michal and Gavriel, know they kill each other. So because Michal and Gavriel, one's fire and water, they're enemies. So Hashem makes peace up there between Michal and Gavriel, between Mayim and Esh. How can you make peace between two opposites? Fire and water can never coexist. So it says, Hainu, when Hashem reveals, that's the inner shalom. That's why the only bracha, the keli, the last mission, no Mishnah is, the only vessel that Hashem has for peace is, and for bracha is shalom. How do you make peace between two opposites? You have to bring down something higher than them that unites them both. Because in the source, they're the same. It's just when it becomes revealed, this is fire, this is water. So when it becomes defined as an entity, then they're opposites. But when you look in the source, where they're both the same, so when Hashem reveals that source, then they're both the same. In practical language, when both sides, the conflicting sides, are joined together for a common goal, and they nullify themselves because of the common goal, yeah, that's when you have success. Bishalom. But not only that, like we said, and a team, you have the individual name on the back of the uniform, and the front you have the team's name. Right? Yeah, in sports they have uniform. You know that? Okay.
No, it's not advertising that one. All of it.
Okay. But you have the back of the name, the individual name in the back, and the name in the front. I told this story. It's a murder story. I mean, there was a coach that was really making his team work really hard. So the guy said to him, Ad Mosai, Ganug already. So he said to them, when the name on the back will be as important to you as the name in the front, then you'll stop practicing. Which means, when you forget about yourself and you work for the team, that's when we'll be successful. Because as long as you're even in sports, basketball, if a guy's only interested in himself making points, they'll never win a game. There's no me, there's no you, there's us. So whatever works for the us works.
But also, I'm just saying, even in sports, that individual has to do his own, and one of the things that makes those things win.
If a guy is supposed to pass the ball in basketball,
no,
and he wants to take his own shot, then he won't get it.
He has to take his own shot.
No! Please don't play sports.
No, the individual has to
If
do
a
his own best.
if a guy would like to get a point, but he knows that there's a better chance with the other guy getting the
in
point.
that case, yes.
But that's what I'm talking about. That's always like that in sports.
Not always. Not always.
And that's not true. It's not true in sports.
You can't always pass the ball.
If that would make it better, that's what you do.
Objectively, instead.
If the team will gain by you giving up the ball, then you do it. Of course, if it will gain by you having the ball, yeah.
In some sports, it doesn't.
The nimshal is very simple.
You have to do your own best also.
The nimshal is very simple. In the body, in order to be a healthy body, all the parts of the body cannot feel themselves. Okay? When the head feels itself, you're sick. When you have a heartache, you're sick. The only time you're healthy is when there's no head and there's no heart feeling itself. It's all functioning together to a cause. Like in sports. In family, in marriage, The only way it works is if there's no me and me, there's us. And me and you are equally important. Or in life, when a person is only a taker and cares only about themselves, then they're not successful. Then it's not a life. In Kedusha, every Jew realizes they are a part of a whole, which means, yes, each Jew does mitzvahs differently, but we're all heading in the same goal. Whatever it takes to get that goal, that's what matters. But to give you another practical example, there's people working on a function, fundraiser, whatever, and people are working, and one guy gets the credit and the other guy who worked harder doesn't even get a mention. Yeah? So normally you'd be angry and insulted, correct? But if you're truly bottled to the cause, you don't care as long as the cause gets done.
Well, his point is it sounds like boxing or karate.
Okay, boxing, you pass the boxing.
So yeah,
We're talking when there's teamwork.
right. Team, yeah. That's
In boxing and golf, there's no teamwork.
there is between the coach and the
There it goes. Okay. Nebuch. So that's what makes how do you the same thing, mashpia and makabel, giver and receiver, are two opposites. Correct? So how do you, the mamish opposites, one's giving, one's taking. He said, but aidei hatzedakah eises sholim. Through tzedakah, what does it show? When the giver gives to the receiver, the giver is showing you're equal to me. I'm not the giver. And therefore, the Gemara says, the poor man does more for the rich man than the rich man does for the poor man. Today it means because the poor man gives more than the rich man, relatively speaking. But even what the Gemara means is when the rich man gives to the poor man and the poor man receives the tzedakah, he's allowing the rich man to do a mitzvah. And he's giving him a nickel or a penny in the first minyan, whatever. So then you're getting you're getting a penny, he's getting a mitzvah. So the comparison, and that's the level why tzedakah makes shalom. Tzedakah makes peace between the giver and the receiver. There is no giver and there's no receiver. It's one thing. What it says about the Yud Gimel Midas Rachman, it's like a garment, white like snow. How does snow fall? Flake by flake by flake until it becomes a snowstorm. The same thing it says by tzedakah, kol pruta mitztarefes lecheshbon gadol. And therefore it says vayilbash tzedakah kishuriyon, which means tzedakah becomes like armor. What's armor? Armor is you have a little piece of metal and another little piece of metal and another little piece of metal, and that makes the piece of armor. So you give tzedakah, it adds up. Every cent adds up to a large amount. And that's the level of so it is also by all mitzvahs. Shemikam b'yachad. Many mitzvahs together make one levush, and that's the levush, which is composed of many different pieces of garment you sew together. Is it Shabbat?